When Kevin Rudd was thrown out of a New York strip club, well, that was just Kevin being human.
I was there as a married bloke, and I shouldn't have been. That's just the bottom line.
When Bill Shorten and other Labor frontbenchers ogled Kate Ellis, well, no issue at all. But the left's hatred of Tony Abbott is extreme. So extreme that this wink became this week's huge scandal.
I just survive on around $400 a fortnight after I pay my rent. And I work on an adult sex line to make ends meet. Now, that's the only way I can do it.
The abuse of Abbott was vicious.
He gave a wink and a smirk. And all I have to say to the Prime Minister on this is, what a creep. What a total creep.
In fact, Abbott was responding to a raised eyebrow from interviewer John Fain of the ABC.
No, I raise my eyebrows. It's not every day a talkback caller who says she's a grandmother invalid pensioner says that she supplements her income by working on a phone sex line.
Joining me is Rowan Dean, columnist for The Spectator and Financial Review and commentator on Sky News. Great to see you again, Rowan.
Good to see you, Andrew. How are you?
Rowan, the ABC's John Fain raises an eyebrow, does a pussy bow when a 67-year-old woman tells him she works on a sex line. He even showed us exactly the face he pulled, and Abbott, not surprisingly, winked back. So, why is Abbott the sexist but Fain fine?
Well, what you've got to understand, Andrew, is if you're on the left of politics, you are intrinsically a good person. Your motives are purer than the driven snow. If you're on the right of politics, you're automatically a bad person, and anything you do, any suggestion, is really just revealing the darkness of your character. So you can be Kevin Rudd and turfed out for leering at lap dancers and, oh, no, nothing wrong with that, no sleaziness there. You can be Craig Thompson frolicking in the red-hot turbo spa on somebody else's money. No, nothing sleazy there. You can be Peter Slipper texting about interesting ways of serving up clams, and there's nothing wrong with that, nothing sleazy about that. You can be Bill Clinton even teaching a young intern different ways to hold a cigar, and no, nothing sleazy with that because you're of the left. But if you're of the right, of course, even a wink or even a hint of a smile, and you're a bad, dark-hearted person. It's extraordinary.
Well, in fact, John Fain then suggests that Abbott may have had a Benny Hill moment. Take a look.
Whether it was a sort of private schoolboy snicker at the mere mention of the word sex, or, you know, that sort of thing, or a Benny Hill moment, everyone who, you know, watches it will make up their own mind.
Now, Rowan, what do you make of John Fain attacking Tony Abbott, even though he was the one that pulled the face first?
Yeah, exactly. Well, no one comes out of this story with any dignity, I would argue, Andrew, other than Tony Abbott. I mean, John Fain knows full well in talkback, I've done talkback, you've done it, Andrew, there's a whole lot of hand gestures, signals going on, nods, winks, all the rest of it. Because you are live on air, there's time delays you have to deal with. Is somebody about to say something rude or offensive or illegal? So there's all sorts of gestures going on like that. You're concentrating on what you're about to say. So John Fain raises an eyebrow. The only way Tony Abbott could have read that was, do I pull the plug on this person, or are you happy to run with it? And the only way Tony Abbott can respond, he's thinking, he can't say anything. He could either go, yeah, go for it, or he winks and he goes, yep, let's do it. Now, John Fain knows this. He knows full well what the Prime Minister was doing, was not sleazy, was not in any way underhand, but still, even he, knowing this, goes on and attacks the Prime Minister, calling it a private school, you know, private schoolboy joke or a Benny Hill moment, again trying to denigrate the Prime Minister, even though he himself has done exactly the same thing with his raised eyebrow.
I think he failed the character test. He joined the lynch mob rather than call time. But, you know, one thing overlooked in this, Rowan, Tony Abbott was taking talkback and running these kinds of risks. Now, Julia Gillard did not, even though the ABC is her kind of constituency. She judged that it was too scary. Which strategy is right in hindsight?
Well, I actually far prefer Tony Abbott's strategy, and I think as Prime Minister, I think talkback or any kind of live interaction is a great thing. It's the equivalent of standing up in front of the crowd at the Workers' Club or whatever, and good on him for doing it. But then, to then be pilloried in this way, of course you run risks, but I would far prefer have a Prime Minister who's prepared to take those risks, stand on his own ground, debate the issues, even though he can't even tell who he is debating with and what tricks they might pull. And in this instance, tricks were being pulled. Let's not forget that on Talkback Radio as well, the panellist, anytime you phone a Talkback radio station, your number comes up. If you've phoned it before and made comments about a certain thing, the producers note it down so that next time your phone rings, they know who you are and what you're talking about. So they would have been, in all likelihood, the ABC knew precisely who this person was and what she was likely to talk about.
And the fact that she probably had a very long agenda, history of being an activist on far-left or anarchist causes. There's another thing the Liberals...
Absolutely.
Another thing the Liberals faced that Julia Gillard didn't, and that's opponents trying to stop them from even speaking. You know, we've had protesters shouting down the Education Minister at Q&A. We've had them shouting down and attacking Foreign Minister Julie Bishop, shouting down former Liberal frontbencher Sophie Mirabella and forcing her out of a university lecture she was giving. Now, is this particularly new or particularly bad?
It's not particularly new, but what's quite creepy about the whole thing is this determination to close down any discussion and close down any debate on what's actually being said. So, again, talking about the Winkgate thing, when you have someone like Tracy Spicer tweeting how bad it is that the Prime Minister has winked, what you are getting here is this desire to not engage in the debate at all, but to purely denigrate people. When you have Sophie Mirabella or Julie Bishop or others being not allowed to speak, not allowed to put their point of view, it is this kind of totalitarian mindset that we see time and time again, whereas because we disagree with what you're saying, we're not going to allow you to say a word, we're going to shut you down. And that is new, and it's really unacceptable, and Australians should be really worried about this development.
Well, there's one thing that worries me in particular, Rowan, about this. You're always going to get, in any society, you're going to get people who arc up, act up, do bad things. The health of a society is measured by how other people react to that, people in positions of responsibility. For example, the ABC gave more than 5 minutes of airtime to a Socialist Alliance organiser of two of these protests, the Q&A disruption and the Julie Bishop attack, and this protester used that time to spruik her cause. Now, are you as sick as I am of protesters getting rewarded like that for shouting down their opponents?
Yeah, and this girl in particular, I bothered to watch her performance at Sydney University. Not only did she do the ABC, she also released a YouTube thing of her talking. The pure vitriol, the hatred, the bile that comes out of these people's mouths. She, in her 5-minute interview with the ABC, she vaguely mentioned the issue. She started off saying university fees may go up to 100 grand. By the end of the interview, she'd upped that to by another 20 grand. But in the middle, we had a good 5 minutes of pure hatred, class warfare. Liberals are bad because they drive around in limousines. We had the awful Christopher Pyne, who's destroying the world, the end of the world as we know it, and just vitriol, 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 and not really addressing the arguments. And these are people who are funded by the taxpayer to go to university, don't have no idea that they are being paid for by someone else and just want more and more. Sit on that gravy train, give me more.
It's the rewarding of these people. Just before we go, let me suggest a better way of dealing with protesters like that, which isn't giving them lots of airtime. Here is a journalist from Denmark's state media dealing with another left-wing activist who organised a protest to shout down and whistle down Denmark's Prime Minister. Have a listen.
Her mod Helle Thorning den 1. maj inde i Fælledparken. Det er fordi, at vi har prøvet at råbe politikerne op på rigtig mange måder. Og vi er trætte af ikke at blive. Er det det?
Now, Rowan, that is a way to deal with protesters, shout down other people. But thank you very much. I'm not going to shout you down. I hope the ABC was watching today's segment. Thank you for your time.
See you, mate. Bye.